My name is Clara Bennett, and I'm 35 years old. I work as a real estate strategist in Portland, Oregon, and if there's one thing I've always been proud of, it's that I built my life with careful precision. Everything, from the hardwood floors in my condo to the structure of my investment portfolio, was the result of hard work, discipline, and years of saying no to things that didn't align with my future. I own a cozy two-bedroom condo that overlooks the treetops of Forest Park, and while it's not extravagant, it's mine. My job is fast-paced and sometimes exhausting, but it gives me a sense of purpose and independence that I wouldn't trade for anything. My younger sister Jenna has always lived by a completely different playbook. She's 2 years younger than me, yet somehow, she's managed to act 10 years younger her entire adult life. Where I kept chore lists and color-coded budgets as a kid, Jenna used to doodle dream catchers on the back of overdue homework. While I was saving my babysitting money and working weekends at a neighborhood bookstore by the time I turned 15, Jenna was sneaking off to music festivals and getting suspended for skipping class. It wasn't that she didn't have potential. She did, but she had no sense of direction. She was impulsive, emotionally erratic, and constantly searching for the thing that would define her. Over the years, that thing had included everything from photography to pottery, and most recently, something vaguely related to nutrition and healing crystals. Nothing lasted more than a few months. Meanwhile, my parents, especially my mother, always treated Jenna's instability as quirky charm. She's just figuring herself out, my mom would say, right before writing another check to cover her rent after she quit yet another job. My father, quieter but just as indulgent, would offer a passive shrug. She takes after your mom, free-spirited. The implication, of course, being that I was the dull one, the spreadsheet-loving, insurance-having bore who couldn't see the magic in winging it. But when Jenna met Kyle at 25, I felt an unfamiliar flicker of hope. Kyle was calm, steady, and worked as a licensed HVAC technician, nothing flashy but stable. Their wedding was small, and naturally, I ended up covering half the expenses when Jenna's elaborate Pinterest board of dreams outgrew their budget. I told myself it was an investment in Jenna finally settling down. A year later, they had Emily, and 2 years after that, Noah. And despite the chaos of their home, the laundry piles, the empty fridge, the overdue bills, the kids were lovely. Bright, curious, sweet. I adored them. So I quietly set up education funds in their names, despite Jenna's typical dismissal. "You're so obsessed with the future, Clara. What about now?" she'd say, usually while ordering another soy matcha latte on her maxed-out credit card. I didn't argue. I just kept saving for them. Then, 3 years ago, Jenna and Kyle bought a modest 3-bedroom in the outskirts of Beaverton, a Portland suburb. It wasn't fancy, but it had a fenced backyard, a good school nearby, and most shocking of all, Jenna sounded genuinely excited. "You should see Emily's room," she told me during a breathless call. "We painted it teal, just like she wanted. And Noah's got a whole dinosaur corner." The pride in her voice made me feel hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, parenthood had anchored her. Meanwhile, I continued with my own steady rhythm. I had no kids, no husband. Not for lack of trying, but because I wasn't willing to dismantle everything I'd worked for just to accommodate someone mediocre, and no chaos. My condo, my sanctuary, was serene. Organized closets. Clean countertops. Peace. Our family fell into a familiar pattern. Sunday dinners at our parents' home every other weekend, birthday parties with lopsided cakes, holiday gatherings filled with laughter and subtle undercurrents. But underneath the surface, the old patterns persisted. Jenna made reckless decisions. Our parents looked to me to help. And more often than not, I did. I rearranged client meetings to pick up the kids when Jenna had a crisis. I transferred money when their fridge died. I found a good mechanic when Kyle's work van broke down. My resentment built slowly over time like sediment. I buried it under years of being the responsible one. Until 6 months ago when I finally started seeing a therapist, Dr. Caldwell. Dr. Caldwell helped me begin recognizing how deeply I'd internalized my family's needs as obligations. "Your sister's poor planning is not your emergency," she reminded me during one early session. "Setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's self-preservation." I nodded, but applying it felt like trying to breathe underwater. How do you say no to the people you've been conditioned to carry? At the same time, Jenna's Instagram feed began to change. Instead of posting photos of school bake sales and backyard birthday parties, she started sharing dreamy images of converted vans, families road schooling their kids across deserts, and captions like, "Escape the grind. Find your soul." One night at our parents' house, Jenna asked, "Don't you ever get tired of the same views every day?" Her eyes flicked to my laptop bag and clean manicure like they were symbols of imprisonment. "Not really," I replied honestly. "I like my routines." She gave me a pitying look. "That's so sad, Clara. There's a whole world out there." I bit back the urge to lecture her on mortgage rates and long-term growth funds. Instead, I changed the subject to summer camps for the kids. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 3 months ago, during one of our typical Sunday dinners, the bombshell dropped. My parents had pulled out the good china, and I should have known something was up. Jenna was practically vibrating with excitement, holding Kyle's hand like they were announcing a pregnancy. "We have big news," she said, grinning ear to ear. "We've listed the house, we're selling it." My fork clattered against the plate. My father blinked. "You're moving? To a bigger place?" my mom asked hopefully. Jenna beamed. "Nope. We're going on the road. Like, permanently." There was silence. Real silence. The kind that hums in your ears. "You're what?" I asked. "We're hitting the road," she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "We're tired of the monotony. Mortgage. Bills. The soul-sucking 9 to 5 routine. We bought a van, one of those tall Sprinter ones, and we're converting it. It'll have everything. Beds, a little kitchen, even a compost toilet." "What about Emily and Noah's school?" I asked, turning to look at the kids, who were suddenly quiet, pushing food around on their plates. "We're road schooling," she answered breezily. "They'll learn more seeing Yellowstone and the Grand Canyon than they ever would in a stuffy classroom memorizing facts." Our mother clapped her hands. "Oh, how wonderful. What an adventure for the children. Remember, George?" She turned to my father. "Didn't we say we wanted to do something like this when we were young?" He nodded slowly, uncertainly. "We talked about it once. Maybe." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Where will you live?" I asked. "In the van," Jenna replied, her voice rising with glee. "It's going to be amazing. We'll follow the sunshine. Find random gigs along the way. Just live." I glanced at Kyle. He was staring down into his wine glass like he wanted to climb inside it. Later, after dinner, while Jenna showed my parents pictures of van interiors saved from Pinterest, I found Kyle in the kitchen rinsing dishes. "Are you really on board with this?" I asked. He sighed heavily. "It's what Jenna wants." "But what about what you want?" I lowered my voice. "What about stability for the kids?" "She thinks we're all trapped. She's been following these van life influencers who make it look so perfect, like freedom equals happiness." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Honestly, I think she's bored. She sees their lives and thinks ours isn't enough." "And your job?" "I'll try to pick up contract HVAC gigs along the way. She says they're everywhere. But nothing's lined up yet. Do you have a budget? Emergency funds? Plans for healthcare?" He gave me a sheepish look. "She says we're overthinking it. That if we trust the universe, everything will fall into place." I had no words. The house sold in less than 2 weeks, $45,000 over asking. But instead of saving a cushion or securing temporary housing, Jenna dumped nearly all the money into the custom van. It cost $62,000 just for the vehicle. Then another $35,000 went into its conversion, solar panels, bamboo cabinetry, high-end ventilation, the works. Every upgrade was flaunted on her Instagram page. #VanLifeDreams. #BreakingFree. #Escaping the Matrix. But what the pictures didn't show was how Emily, who used to giggle at everything, now smiled with her mouth closed, or how Noah clutched his toy Stegosaurus like it was a lifeline. I noticed it during one of our coffee meetups, the only one we managed before they left town. Jenna chattered endlessly about campgrounds and wanderlust. I tried to inject some reason. Have you thought about what you'll do in case of a medical emergency? If the van breaks down? You worry too much, she laughed. That's why you're stuck in a cubicle every day. We'll figure it out as we go. That's the whole point. But the kids are adaptable. They don't need the kind of structure you obsess over. They need freedom, exploration. Our ancestors were nomads, Clara. They survived without lesson plans. Our ancestors also died at 30, I muttered under my breath. 2 weeks before their official departure, Kyle quit his job. My parents threw a send-off party in their backyard, complete with cake shaped like a van and banners that read "Follow Your Bliss." The entire extended family came. Everyone toasted their bold decision. I stood in the corner with a glass of wine, feeling like the only person who hadn't lost their mind. Aren't you proud of your sister? My mom asked, nudging me. I stared at Jenna dancing barefoot in the grass, holding Emily's hands as Noah ran in circles. It looks less like taking control and more like giving up responsibility, I said. My mother's smile faded. Not everyone needs a spreadsheet to feel fulfilled. Some of us want more than asset portfolios and grocery lists. The words stung. Was I boring? Was my stability a flaw? And yet, as they drove away a few days later, their shiny van fading down the street, I felt a growing, anxious certainty. This would all collapse. And when it did, I would be the one expected to pick up the pieces. The first few weeks of Jenna's so-called freedom tour unfolded on social media like a glossy lifestyle magazine. My Instagram was filled with photos of Emily doing yoga at sunrise on a mountaintop, of Noah squinting into the sun as they hiked near crystal-clear lakes, of picnic dinners beneath fairy lights strung across the awning of the van. Every post was filtered to perfection and captioned with inspirational nonsense like, "Escape routine, embrace life." For a moment, I doubted myself. Maybe I'd been too rigid. Maybe this was working. I might have been wrong. I admitted during one of my sessions with Dr. Caldwell. They look happy. Dr. Caldwell raised an eyebrow. Social media rarely reflects reality. Has Jenna said how the kids are doing? She sends occasional texts. Just things like, "Saw wild horses today," or "Epic sunrise in Utah." Nothing meaningful. And she hasn't let me speak to Emily or Noah directly. Says they're too busy living in the now. Dr. Caldwell nodded slowly. Keep the lines of communication open. Be available. Not if, but when they need you. Her words turned prophetic faster than either of us expected. Just 6 weeks into their adventure, the cracks started to show. The Instagram posts became infrequent, and the captions lost their sparkle. Van life isn't always glamorous, Jenna wrote beneath a dimly lit photo of the van's interior, where laundry hung like curtains and dishes piled up in the tiny sink. But we're not tourists, we're living. Comments shifted from admiration to concern. Someone asked, "Where are the kids going to school?" Jenna replied with a rambling paragraph about experiential learning, unschooling, and letting nature be the classroom, but the response lacked substance. There was no mention of books, no structure, just vague references to world schooling. Then came the mechanical problems. Apparently, the van began making strange noises while climbing through Colorado. They ignored it because diagnostics cost money. When they finally pulled into a specialty shop, the bill came to over $3,000. Jenna posted a cryptic story with the words, "Setbacks are just setups for comebacks," layered over a photo of a dusty parking lot. What she didn't post was that our father had quietly wired them $1,500 the same day, money he pulled from their retirement savings. When I asked him about it during our weekly call, his tone was defensive. "All new ventures have startup costs," he said. "This isn't a startup. They're living out of a van with 2 children. That's not a business model, it's a ticking time bomb." He changed the subject. A few days later, I asked how Emily and Noah were doing. He hesitated. "They miss their friends." Sorry, Emily asked about her teacher the other day. Apparently, school started back and some of the kids in the campgrounds are doing Zoom classes. She was confused why she wasn't. My stomach sank. "Are they doing any curriculum at all?" "Jenna says they're learning geography firsthand," he replied, but he didn't sound convinced. Then one Tuesday night, the inevitable happened. My phone buzzed at 11:30, 2 p.m. Jenna. I groaned and answered, instantly alert. Jenna? Her voice was small, trembling. Clara, we're in a tight spot. I sat up. What kind of spot? The van needed more repairs. And gas is insane. Campgrounds are way more expensive than we thought. Kyle hasn't found consistent work since Colorado. We're in this tiny town in Utah and, Clara, could you maybe lend us a couple $1,000s? Just until his next gig comes through? I pinched the bridge of my nose. Where are you staying right now? Some cheap motel. It's all we could afford. I closed my eyes. I can help you go over your budget. Maybe we can restructure some things. No, she snapped, her voice suddenly sharper. We don't need a budget review. We need help. You have the money. I do, I said carefully. But I'm not comfortable sending money if there's no plan to fix the bigger issue. You always do this, she said bitterly. You make everything a lecture. You think just because you have your perfect little condo and your spreadsheets, you get to judge how everyone else lives. Then she hung up. The next day, she posted a photo of a sunset with the caption, "Some people just don't get it. That's okay. We're not living for them. No regrets. #trust the journey." I knew the jab was aimed at me. What she didn't post was that our parents had, once again, sent money, this time by maxing out their credit card. They couldn't afford it, but they did it anyway. In the weeks that followed, Kyle picked up a few gigs. A day here, 2 days there, but it was never enough. Jenna's Instagram posts started to sound more like desperate affirmations than joy, embracing simplicity, gratitude for rice and beans. Kids are learning resilience. On a video call with my parents, I caught a glimpse of Noah in the background. His hair was unbrushed, and he clutched a workbook with bent pages. I asked him how school was going. "I miss Miss Peterson," he whispered when my parents briefly stepped away. "Mom says we're doing road school, but mostly we just drive around." Before I could ask anything else, Jenna appeared, her face tight with resentment as she pulled Noah away. By October, reality had completely caught up with the fantasy. The cold weather rolled in. Their follow the sunshine plan was no match for fuel costs and frozen nights. They burned through propane to heat the van. Campgrounds were booked or unsafe. Their pictures now showed huddled figures under wool blankets, pretending shivering was an adventure. My parents started calling more often. Their voices were tense. My mother began dropping not-so-subtle hints about my spacious condo and how much good it would do to have a warm, stable place for the kids. But I held firm. They chose this. I reminded them. And I'll help them figure a real solution. But I won't turn my home into a temporary shelter for 4 people indefinitely. They just need a place to catch their breath, my dad said. A few weeks. 3 months at most. They need a plan, I said. Not a bailout. Deep down, I wasn't worried about Jenna or Kyle. I was worried about Emily and Noah. By November, the illusion officially collapsed. Jenna's posts became rare and increasingly defensive. Gone were the glossy sunset shots and sun-drenched family meals. In their place were grainy parking lot photos and bitter captions like, "People glamorize van life, but have no idea how hard it really is. We're not on vacation. We're surviving. Still no regrets." But everything about her tone screamed regret. The final crash, both literal and emotional, happened just before Thanksgiving. The van's transmission gave out completely as they coasted into a tiny town in Nevada, 70 miles from anywhere. Not a simple breakdown this time. A full failure. The cost to repair it? $12,000. Kyle had apparently been hearing noises for weeks but kept driving, hoping they could push through until spring. They never stopped long enough for diagnostics because they couldn't afford to. Now, the van had to be towed to a specialized shop that wouldn't even look at it without an upfront payment. The 3-way call that followed was heartbreaking and enraging. "They're asking $12,000. Jenna's voice cracked over the line. My mother gasped. "How can that be? You just had work done last month." "It's a Mercedes, Mom," I said quietly, holding back the "I told you so" burning on my tongue. "Custom everything. Luxury parts. No easy fixes. We don't have that kind of money, my father said slowly. We already sent you almost everything we had last time. They had. I'd found out through a bank alert on their joint retirement account, a quiet loan Jenna had asked for behind my back. Where are you staying now? I asked. Jenna's voice dropped to a whisper. Some motel. The sun set in. It's $49 a night. We're down to our last $100. I did the math. Repairs plus a 2-week motel stay plus food and gas, even conservatively, added up to a financial hole so deep they couldn't see daylight. It wasn't just a bad situation, it was a full collapse. Maybe it's time, I said carefully, to admit the plan isn't working. Sell the van. Find something affordable and stable. Somewhere Kyle can get consistent work. Start over. You mean give up? My mother snapped. They've come this far. No, I replied. They've run out of road, literally and financially. The dream is gone. They're in a motel with no money, 2 kids out of school, and no viable plan for winter. That night, Jenna called me directly. Her voice was raw, barely above a whisper. You were right, she said. About all of it. I sat down, stunned. In all our lives, Jenna had never said those 3 words to me. Tell me what's happening, I said softly. Between sobs, the story spilled out. The last few $100s had gone to motel fees and groceries. Kyle picked up a day labor job at a construction site nearby. Enough to pay for gas and food, but nowhere near what they needed. The van was dead weight. They had 1 working credit card, now nearing its limit. The kids hadn't done any formal schooling in months. Emily had started having panic attacks. Noah had nightmares nearly every night. I ruined everything, she whispered. The house, the kids' routine, Kyle's job. I kept thinking it would all come together, that the universe would step in. What do you want to do now? I asked. I don't know. Kyle says we should sell the van, rent something cheap, and settle down. But that feels like failure. It's not failure, I said, choosing every word carefully. It's course correction. It's recognizing when something isn't working and choosing better. We can't even afford a deposit, she murmured. We don't have a rental history anymore. Our credit's a mess. Nobody's going to take us. I paused. That's fixable. You just need to start. Sell the van. Kyle has skills. He can find work. Pick a small city with low rent, somewhere with schools. I can help. But not by giving cash blindly. I'll help build a real plan. There was a long silence. I don't think I can do it, she said. Not yet. I need the van fixed. I need to get back on the road. Maybe we'll find somewhere warmer. Somewhere better. The desperation in her voice didn't sound like hope. It sounded like denial. I hung up and sat in the dark for a long time. The next morning, I found out that my parents had maxed out their only credit card to pay for the van's repairs. When I confronted them, my father's voice was firm. There are grandchildren, Clara. We couldn't leave them stranded. There were other options, I said. Options that didn't involve digging deeper into financial ruin. You've always been so hard on Jenna, my mother snapped. You don't understand what it's like to struggle. The words hit hard. I'd worked 3 jobs through college. Saved every spare dollar. Paid off every debt. No one helped me. But sure, I didn't understand. Then came the kicker. We were hoping, my mother began, that maybe Jenna's family could stay with you for a little while. My stomach twisted. Excuse me? You have the space, my father chimed in. 2 bedrooms. An office. They wouldn't be a burden. Just until they find their footing. And how long exactly is a little while? I asked. 3 months. 6 at most. I froze. Did you already promise them this? My mother looked away. My father said nothing. You told them they could move in with me? Silence. I hung up. For a long time, I sat staring at the lake outside my window. Then I did something I had never done before. I typed a message to our family group chat. We need to have a family video meeting. Tomorrow. 7 p.m. Everyone. No exceptions. I hit send. Then I waited. At exactly 7 p.m. the next evening, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open in front of me. The mug of tea I'd made for myself sat untouched, the steam curling up like quiet warning smoke. One by one, the video squares blinked to life. My parents, side by side on their old couch in the living room. Kyle, appearing to be in the bathroom of the Sunset Inn motel, probably trying to find a quiet space. Jenna joined last, her face tight with defensiveness, eyes already narrowed like she was ready to fight. "Thanks for making time," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We need to clarify a few things, starting with something important. I was recently told by Mom and Dad that Jenna's family is planning to move into my condo. I want to be perfectly clear, I never agreed to that. But we wouldn't be in your way." Jenna cut in immediately. "The kids can share the office, Kyle, and I can take the second bedroom. We'll stay out of your way." Quiet as mice. "It's just temporary." The casual tone in her voice made my pulse rise. Like she was doing me a favor by letting me host her family of 4 in my 1,200 square foot condo. "That's exactly the problem," I said calmly. "You're talking about it as if it's already decided. It's not. I was never asked. I was informed." My mother looked impatient. "Clara, now's not the time for selfishness. Your sister and her family need help." "I am helping," I replied. "But I have to set boundaries. Having 5 people, including 2 kids, in my 2-bedroom condo indefinitely is not just inconvenient. It's unrealistic." Jenna scoffed. "You have a second bedroom and an office in downtown Portland, and you're seriously saying there's not enough room? We've been living in a van, Clara." "Yes, by choice," I said. "And my second bedroom barely fits a full bed. The office is 8 times 10 and holds my entire work setup. I meet with clients virtually every day. And no, there's no room for a family of 4. Kyle looked awkward. "We just need somewhere to regroup. A soft landing." "I understand that," I said, turning to him. "But let's talk logistics. Where would you all sleep? Eat? Shower? Do laundry? Where would your things go? What about the cost, utilities, food, internet, water? That's a huge increase. Who's paying for that?" There was a pause. "We thought you could cover it for now," my father said plainly. "Given your financial position." I closed my eyes for a beat. "Let me make sure I've got this right. You want me to turn over my home, sacrifice my privacy and my workspace, take on hundreds of dollars in new monthly expenses, because of a series of reckless choices I repeatedly advised against." "That's what family does," my mother said. "We help each other when we fall." "Yes," I agreed. "When someone stumbles due to something unforeseen, illness, job loss, disaster, that's a time to step in. This was foreseeable. This was avoidable. This was warned against at every step." "You're so judgmental," Jenna hissed. "Just because I didn't want a corporate robot lifestyle doesn't mean I'm a bad mother or that I've made wrong choices." "I never said your choices were wrong because they're different," I said, holding her gaze. "I said they're wrong because they were financially reckless and endangered your kids' well-being." "You don't have kids," she snapped. "You have no idea what they need." "I know they need stable housing, education, healthcare, adults they can count on," I said quietly. "Right now, they don't have any of those things. And I won't fix that by making my home a crash pad." My father tried a different tactic. "But compared to what they're going through, is it really that big a deal for you? You have a job, a nice place, no dependents. Why not help your sister for a few months?" I took a deep breath and felt something in me shift. "Let's talk about what I've already done," I said, calmly but clearly. I co-signed Jenna's first lease when she had no credit. I covered 3 months of rent when she left her job to become a crystal healer. I paid for half her wedding. I started education savings accounts for both of her kids. I rearranged client meetings to babysit when she had panic attacks or pottery classes. I loaned them money for a fridge, helped Kyle find a mechanic, and gave them budgeting advice they never used. That's not counting the emotional labor or the years I've been the fallback plan. The screen was silent. I saw my mother's mouth close slightly, my father looking off screen. I've helped. Again and again. And what I've learned is this. Helping doesn't work when it enables more bad choices. Then, to everyone's shock, Kyle spoke up. She's right. Jenna turned to him, visibly stunned. What? She's right, he repeated. We've made bad decisions, you've made bad decisions, and everyone's just cushioned the consequences. Mostly Clara. Jenna's jaw clenched. Kyle, don't do this. It's time we're honest, he said. The van wouldn't have broken down if we'd taken it in for diagnostics. But you used the last of our savings on that retreat in Sedona for your influencer page. And the bamboo cabinets. And the composting toilet. Those were investments in our brand. Jenna cried. We were going to monetize everything. The journey is over, Kyle said flatly. We need to focus on the kids now. On reality. A long, awkward silence followed. Finally, I spoke again more gently. I'm still willing to help. Just not by sacrificing my home and stability. But I can contribute toward a deposit for an apartment. I can help build a real financial plan. Kyle has skills. He can find work again. There are better, realistic options. Jenna's voice trembled. So you're abandoning us? No, I said. I'm giving you something more valuable than a warm bed for a month. I'm giving you a path forward. My mother looked furious. If you turn your back on your sister, don't expect forgiveness. Family stands together in crisis. I stared straight at the camera. And if family means sacrificing my mental health, home, and finances without consent, then maybe we have very different definitions of love. She opened her mouth to respond, but I'd had enough. I won't be guilt anymore, I said. I've given what I can. Now it's your turn to make better choices. The screen went black as they left the call. Jenna exited a second later. Kyle remained. I'm sorry, he said, his voice quiet. For everything. You're the only one who's been honest. The only one who's actually helping. I nodded. Then prove it, I said. And with that, I closed the laptop. The laptop clicked shut with finality, but the echoes of that call reverberated inside me for hours. I sat there, fingers knotted in my lap, heart pounding, not with regret, but with something strangely close to relief. For the first time in my adult life, I had drawn a line with my family and not immediately rushed to erase at the moment someone looked disappointed. And yet, the guilt still crept in. Had I gone too far? Was I abandoning my niece and nephew, two innocent kids caught in their parents' chaos? That night, I barely slept. My mind spiraled through memories. Emily dancing in the backyard sprinkler, Noah's endless dinosaur trivia. I wasn't angry at them. I never had been. By morning, I had made a decision. I couldn't and wouldn't open my home to all four of them. But I could still help in a way that mattered. I called Dr. Caldwell for an emergency session. She fit me in that afternoon. I feel like I'm the villain, I told her as I paced the corner of her office. I said no. I stood up for myself. But it doesn't feel like victory. It feels hollow. She leaned forward slightly. That's common when you've been trained to put others' needs before your own. Clara, you didn't reject your family. You rejected a pattern that was unsustainable. That's different. But what about the kids? I asked, sinking into the chair. They deserve better than this mess. Yes, she said gently. And you're in a position to offer support, but only the kind that fosters long-term solutions, not temporary band-aids. That night, I took my laptop to a quiet corner booth at a coffee shop, ordered a black coffee I wouldn't drink, and got to work. I began by researching affordable apartments in the Nevada town where Jenna and Kyle were currently stranded. I was shocked to find several modest two-bedrooms in safe neighborhoods ranging from $850 to $1,100 per month. Nothing fancy, but solid options. Next, I looked into construction and HVAC job postings within a 25-mile radius. There were several. In fact, a mid-sized company just outside town was urgently hiring. Then I opened my budgeting software and drafted a realistic recovery plan. If they sold the van, even at a loss, they have enough to cover first and last month's rent and basic furnishings. Kyle's earnings could float essentials while he looked for something permanent. Jenna could find part-time work. The kids could re-enroll in a local public school, which had decent ratings. If they followed the plan, they could regain stability in 2 months. And with discipline, rebuild savings in 6. I stared at the finished spreadsheet for a long time. Then I sent Kyle a text. "Can we talk privately? I have some ideas that might help." His reply came an hour later. Motel lobby, 8 p.m. my time. Jenna's taking the kids to the pool. When we connected via video, he looked exhausted. His dark circles seemed deeper, his shoulders slumped with a heaviness I hadn't seen before. "How bad is it?" I asked. He laughed quietly. "Worse than anyone knows. That 12 grand repair wiped out everything your parents gave us." Jenna's still clinging to the idea that once we get the van back, we'll just drive south and reset. But we can't even afford the gas to get out of this parking lot. He rubbed his temples. "She's talking about stealth camping in Walmart lots again. Clara, the kids are breaking." My voice softened. "How are Emily and Noah?" His mouth twitched. "Trying to be strong. But Emily cries every night. Noah's regressed. He wet the bed twice this week. They miss structure. Friends. Showers that don't go cold after 4 minutes." I nodded. I figured. That's why I made a plan. I pulled up the apartment listings and shared my screen. I walked him through every part: rent estimates, job opportunities, how to sell the van for parts, even a rough weekly budget. I told him I would personally cover the security deposit and first month's rent as a gift, not a loan, but only on one condition. You commit to stability. No more detours. No more chasing some fantasy. Just focus on the kids. For a moment he said nothing. Then he nodded. "I will. I promise. I've been too passive, Clara. I let Jenna drive, literally and figuratively. But not anymore." I believed him. Over the next 2 days, Kyle followed through. He reached out to landlords, scheduled a walkthrough for a small but clean 2-bedroom in a quiet area. The property manager agreed to fast-track the application. He also accepted a full-time HVAC position starting the following Monday. It wasn't glamorous, but it came with health benefits and a $21 per hour wage. I wired the money. Then came the hardest part, telling Jenna. Kyle stood firm. He told her he was taking the job and that he'd enrolled the kids in public school for the following week. That he'd sold the van, yes, even the composting toilet, and that their time on the road was over. "You can come with us," he said, "or you can keep running. But I'm done dragging the kids through this." I wasn't part of the conversation, but he sent me a single text afterward. She didn't take it well, but she agreed. For now. 3 days later, he sent me a picture. Emily and Noah, standing in an empty apartment, holding pizza slices and paper plates. Their smiles were real, not forced for a post, not part of a caption. I stared at the image until my eyes burned. A real beginning. With Kyle and the kids finally settling into their new apartment, a fragile sense of stability began to form, but the storm with my parents was just beginning. They hadn't spoken to me since the video call. No texts. No calls. Not even the usual forwarded recipes from my mom or the dad jokes my father liked to send every Friday. Their silence wasn't just disapproval, it was punishment, familiar and deliberate. It wasn't the first time they'd tried to guilt me into submission, but it was the first time I didn't fold. After a few days, I decided to face the conflict head-on. I drove out to their house on a Sunday afternoon unannounced. The weather had turned cool, a drizzling rain tapping against the windshield the entire hour-long drive. By the time I knocked on their front door, my nerves were steel. My mother answered. Her expression froze for half a second before she stepped aside, silent. My father sat in his recliner, lowering his newspaper just slightly. "Clara," he said, his voice flat. I sat down on the edge of their couch and folded my hands. "I wanted to let you know that Kyle and the kids are in an apartment now. They moved in yesterday. The kids are enrolled in school. Kyle starts his new job this week." My mother's eyebrows rose ever so slightly. "Without your sister's input?" She agreed, I said carefully. "Eventually. It wasn't easy, but it was the right decision." My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. "So you helped, but on your terms." "I helped in the way that actually solves the problem," I said. "Not by sacrificing my home or my stability, but by giving them the tools to rebuild theirs. Easy for you to say, she muttered. You've never had to worry about making ends meet. Not like Jenna. I inhaled sharply. Mom, everything I have, my savings, my job, my home, it didn't fall into my lap. I worked through high school, through college, paid off student loans, turned down vacations, built an emergency fund instead of buying new cars or going to Bali for a spiritual reset. I wasn't lucky. I was disciplined. My father spoke up more thoughtfully. So, what exactly did you do? I explained everything. The apartment search, the job opportunities one found for Kyle, the financial gift I provided, the plan to rebuild over the next 6 months. He leaned back in his chair, silent for a moment. Then, with a reluctant nod, said, "That's actually very generous." My mother said nothing. "It's also sustainable," I added. "They don't have to rely on anyone's couch. The kids can finally have their own beds, their own friends, a routine. That's how I want to help." She crossed her arms. "You still refused them when they needed shelter." "Because giving up my condo would have created more chaos than it solved. You call that selfish, but I call it smart, responsible, and frankly, long overdue." The conversation kept circling, her stubborn resistance to accept that support could exist without surrender. But I didn't back down. For the first time, I saw my father begin to soften, even nod in agreement when I described the ways their enabling had prolonged Jenna's instability. When I finally left, we hadn't hugged. There were no apologies. But something had shifted. Not full forgiveness, but maybe the first steps toward understanding. Later that evening, I received a text from Kyle. "Sign the lease today. The kids are excited. First night in a real bed. Thank you." Attached was a photo of Emily and Noah standing in their new living room. Emily was holding a piece of poster board that read, "My room," in sparkly markers. Noah had drawn a stegosaurus next to it. I smiled through tears. The next day brought an unexpected call from Aunt Linda, my mother's younger sister. "Clara," she said as soon as I answered, "I just wanted to tell you, you did the right thing." I blinked. "You heard about everything?" "Of course I did. Your mother called me to say how heartless you were," she said with a short laugh. "But honestly, I wish someone had said no to me like that when I needed it." We spoke for half an hour. She shared her own experiences, times she had caved to guilt, given too much, let others pull her under in the name of family. She told me that what I had done, drawing the line, wasn't cruelty. It was courage. That call felt like a bomb. In the following days, I received more photos from Kyle. The kids' school backpacks hanging by the door, Noah beaming as he showed off his star student sticker, Emily curled up on her bed, reading. The simple things most people overlook became symbols of real progress. Even Jenna started to shift. Slowly. She wasn't posting anymore. Her once daily Instagram stories filled with hashtags and van selfies had gone dark. Instead, I got a single text from her late one night. "Emily got Student of the Month. She's so proud." No emojis. No hashtags. Just raw, maternal pride. A small message. A huge step. Spring arrived in Portland quietly. New buds on the trees outside my window, a little more warmth in the breeze off the river, and, surprisingly, a thaw in my family dynamics too. Over the next few weeks, something unfamiliar happened. Peace. The apartment in Nevada had started to feel like a real home for Kyle and the kids. The walls were still bare in places, the furniture secondhand, but the space held laughter, school projects, and steady routines. Kyle kept his HVAC job and had already been promoted to lead technician. Emily had been placed in an advanced reading group. Noah joined a local after-school dinosaur club. Their faces on video calls looked fuller, more relaxed. They were flourishing. Jenna? She was still finding her footing. Her resentment had lingered like the last patches of snow after a storm, cold, slow to melt. But even she had begun showing signs of change. She'd stopped trying to post curated perfection online and started picking up part-time work at a local natural grocery store. She hadn't said much to me directly, but I noticed her tone shifting when we spoke. Less defensive. More grounded. One afternoon, she texted me. Got offered a weekend workshop to teach kids basic pottery. It's small, but it's something. I replied, that sounds great. The kids will be proud of you. Her response, I hope so. I want to give them something to be proud of. That night, my father called. Not about Jenna, but about his retirement portfolio. After we went over some allocation shifts and investment timelines, there was a pause. You know, he said awkwardly, I think we messed up. With Jenna. With you too. My heart stilled. What do you mean? You tried to help the right way. We just didn't want to believe the old way wasn't working anymore. That admission, small as it was, felt enormous. My mother followed weeks later. Her change came more slowly, carefully, with guarded humility. A short call here, a text there. Then, one Sunday, while updating me on Emily's grades, she paused. You were right about the difference between support and enabling, she said. My mother did the same with me. Always bailed me out. It took me longer to grow up than I should have. She let the silence hang before continuing. I'm trying to be better. Still learning. I am too, I told her. In late March, I flew to Nevada for a visit. I stayed at a hotel nearby, not wanting to impose. The apartment was humble but tidy. The kids had made me a sign. Welcome, Aunt Clara. It hung slightly crooked on the front door, and it made me tear up the second I saw it. We had pizza on paper plates in their small dining room, laughter echoing off the bare walls. Emily showed me her reading badge from school. Noah told me he wanted to be a dinosaur scientist with a backpack and a hammer. That night, Jenna and I stood on the small back patio of the building, looking out at rows of beige apartments. Not quite the open road, she said, half laughing. No, I agreed. But it has its own kind of peace. She looked down, toying with a chipped bit of paint on the railing. I'm trying to accept that this version of life might be okay. That structure doesn't mean failure. That stability doesn't equal boredom. You're learning, I said. The truth is, when we were on the road, I thought we were free. But I was more trapped than ever. Always stressed. Always hiding how bad things were. It was like chasing the sun but never getting warm. She turned to me. Thank you for not giving me what I wanted, but what I needed. Even when I hated you for it. I didn't enjoy saying no, I admitted. But I knew if I said yes, it wouldn't be helping. It would be covering another wound with duct tape. I still have dreams, she said. But they need to wait until the kids are okay. Until I'm okay. That's not giving up, I said. That's growing up. We stood together for a long moment, not needing to fill the silence. Later that week, my mother sent me a photo. Emily and Noah in their Easter clothes. Noah with a crooked tie, Emily holding a tiny basket. The caption was simple. Happy. Stable. Thank you. Thanksgiving came full circle that year. Instead of hosting a big gathering in Portland, I returned to Nevada. My parents drove down with coolers full of food. My aunt and cousins joined by video. We used a folding table that barely fit in the living room and mismatched chairs from neighbors. Jenna found a second-hand tablecloth that was too short, so Emily had taped construction paper leaves to the corners to fill the space. As we sat down for the meal, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time around my family, calm. There were still awkward moments. My mom serving Jenna first out of habit, my father making a quiet comment about how Jenna was always the charming one. But this time, I didn't bite my tongue or snap. I just smiled and let it pass. Growth doesn't mean perfection. It means progress. After dinner, while Kyle and my father argued about football scores and the kids colored on the floor, Jenna joined me in the kitchen. I'll probably mess up again, she said, drying a plate. But I'm not running anymore. I want to be here. I know, I said. And I'll be here too, but on healthy terms. She nodded, wiping her hands on a dish towel. That's fair. More than fair. Later that night, as I watched Emily and Noah fall asleep under warm blankets in a real home, I felt a peace I didn't know I needed. I hadn't saved them. They had saved themselves, with a push, a plan, and a very firm line drawn in love. Sometimes, real support doesn't look like sacrifice. It looks like sustainability. It's not about giving until there's nothing left of you. It's about giving just enough for someone to stand and then letting them walk on their own. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever struggled with family boundaries, guilt, or being the responsible one, know this: you're not alone. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share your experience in the comments. Sometimes the bravest, kindest thing you can do is simply say no.